But for some reason, when I say my name to foreign people, I'm from Africa, I'm from Ghana. They can say Mahatma. It's like Mahatma without the T, right? So it's Mahatma. That's easy. So I have to always explain my name. I am the math tutor here at Springlight. My background is in engineering. I'm a chemical engineer and environmental engineer. I also have an MBA from Colombia. So I have different interests and backgrounds. I'm also a certified NLP practitioner. So I'm very interested in things that have to do with the mind and emotions. And I realized not too long ago, but maybe 5-10 years ago, that there is more to being successful in life for myself than just what I know in my head or the genes I got from my parents. That success is more than just knowledge. That sometimes there are other factors that you can learn to make yourself better, right? And one of them is emotional management. It's so important. You don't learn those in class. Like when you're in school, your teacher only cares if you get an A or B. They don't care how else you're doing. So I figured it's really important to be able to It's really important to be able to learn things outside of school that only your parents can teach you, right? Usually. And as parents, you know that you are so busy that maybe you don't even have time to guide your kids in all aspects of life, right? So this seminar is more like, how can we empower you as parents to get some more skills to help your kids become more resilient? Like, how do they deal with failures? Maybe they come to you and they have a C in a test, but they want to go to Harvard and you're like, oh my God, I'm stuck, my kid just got a C, right? How will you deal with your own frustration and your kids' frustration? Nobody will teach you that in school. So that's why Springlight and we put this together. This is based on my personal experience and my training as well. And I hope that we can keep it informal, I hope, right? So it's not, even though I have some slides, depending on the questions you have, we may go with the slides or away from the slides. Okay. Anyway, that's a bit about me. I used many books to prepare this presentation, but I guess if you like to read and you want to do more research, there's this book called Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. It's probably the best one of its kind in this field. It's a very good book if you have time to read it. I know you're busy. So that is something that I recommend if you want to learn more about this topic. Okay. It talks about things like stress management, anxiety management, depression management, and helps you understand how the mind works. There you go.
Is that for parents, really?
Yeah, this would not help students. It's for anybody that can help parents as well, I would say. Then there's this one, Emotional Intelligence 2.0. This is an easier to read book. There's less science here, there's a lot more science here.
This one's easy to read.
Yes, it's easy to read. And it has a test in it. The test would help you see where you are personally in your emotional abilities, right? And also your kids as well. So you can take the test, and you can have your kids take the test. So this is why this is a good book, because you see how well are you doing with managing your relationship, okay? Then there's this one, Overcoming Anxiety. That's a really good book. It teaches you different ways of managing anxiety, very practical techniques. I like this book because there's really simple things that anybody can use at home to help yourself. It's written by a very famous psychologist who was a clinical psychologist for many, many years, right? One of the reasons students don't do really well, even when they are smart, is because of anxiety. So it's a good thing to be able to manage anxiety. Then, this is one of my favorite books. It's called Feeling Good by David Burns. This uses a technique called cognitive behavioral therapy that basically says that your emotions come from your thoughts, and therefore your thoughts can help manage your emotions as well. There are concepts called cognitive reframing. So if you're feeling really tense, where did the tension come from? Probably from something you thought about, right? So how can you reframe those thoughts to get into a position that is much more beneficial to you? So this is just references for you to see. There are many other books that I use. Like I said, I'm an NLP practitioner. We use many other different types of techniques. Okay, so let's see what I've put together today. How does this go? Okay. So this is a provocative statement. It says, why do smart people do dumb things sometimes? I'm sure you've seen that before. That I can tell that for myself. I don't know you well, so I can't tell you the dumb things I've done. But I can tell you I've done a lot of dumb things in my lifetime, right? And I consider myself relatively smart. I remember even in politics, you guys probably have heard of some of the things that people like Bill Clinton and other people who are supposed to be smart have done, right? So if you have a very high IQ, why doesn't it prevent you from doing stupid things? That's basically what it is. Yes. So there's a gentleman, his name is Jason, for the sake of this discussion. He went to Cape Coral Springs High School in Florida, and he had straight 800s on the SAT, but ended up stabbing the teacher with a knife. So the question is, why would somebody who's got such a high IQ, above 120, perfect SAT score, still do something like that? It's difficult to understand, right? So it happened that one of his teachers gave him a B in physics. And the way he responded, because he was a straight A student, was to attack the teacher. So it baffles the imagination. Why would you do that? Right? So it's also well known. I mean, there's another story of a student who went to this school called Amherst College. Also perfect SAT scores, but took 10 years to graduate from college. How can you be so smart and still take 10 years? So imagine your kid, you expect your kid to go to school for 4 years and they end up finishing the school in 10 years. Wouldn't that give you a heart attack of sorts? I don't even want to imagine that. I know of a friend who did his PhD in 10 years. I was in school with him, but college for 10 years, that's a lot, right? So it is a well-known fact that being smart alone is not enough to be successful in life. I know you care about your students getting 4.1, 4.2 GPAs, but the question that you want to ask yourself is that all there is to being successful in life, right? Okay, so let's see. All right. There's a book that I read. It's not one of the books here. It's called The Happiness Hypothesis by Jason Hay, and he talks about an elephant and a rider. So when he says an elephant, he's talking about your entire emotional system, right? And the rider is your logic, your reasoning power. I come from Africa, and we have lots of elephants there. They're really huge. When you stand before one, you cannot even see the top of the elephant, right? So imagine you a small person sitting on top of the elephant, and you're trying to turn the elephant left and right. It is not an easy thing to do, right? So in this model, the elephant is your emotions. Very difficult. When it's going one way, it's very difficult to turn it the other way, right? And your logic is the person who's riding it. So imagine you are driving an elephant, your mind is driving it, but the elephant has its own ideas. If it's going one way, it's difficult to change it, right? So in many of the conceptions of neuroscience, we talk about the primitive brain and the modern brain. So if you believe in evolution, the brain evolved this way. We have what we call the limbic system, right? That is the stem of the brain from your spinal cord. And over time, a ring system developed around your brain, okay, with two edges called the amygdala. Amygdala in Greek means almond. Okay? And these are the ones that tend to be the centers of emotional processing. Right? But over time, we developed what we call the modern brain that has the prefrontal cortex and all the areas here that help you to do rational thinking. So the old brain or the primitive brain was there a long time before the modern brain came into place. Okay? And before, scientists used to think like this. They used to think that when something happens to you, you think about it and you decide how to act. So you think before you act. That's the emotional response, right? But later on, neuroscience experiments discovered that, in fact, the first piece of information goes to your emotional center, which is your amygdala, before it goes to your prefrontal cortex. So you react emotionally to something before you get the chance to think about it. So that sometimes the things that you do, you don't have control over, right? Now, it doesn't mean that you are helpless. If you go and shoot somebody today, you cannot blame your emotional centers, right? There are ways of dealing with that, but the idea is that emotions are a lot more powerful than logic. So how do you let emotions work for you? And before you think that emotions are a bad thing, think about this. There was a guy who got shot in war, and he lost his part of his emotional centers. So this guy was 100% logical, and he could never make any decisions. Because if you don't have emotions, it's very difficult to decide between good and bad, right and wrong. So emotions are not bad, but they are very difficult to deal with. That's why it's important to learn how to process it. So this slide just is using an analogy. The human emotion is the elephant, very difficult to deal with, and your logic is you, the rider. Or you can say primitive brain versus what? Modern brain. Okay. Many of you have heard of intelligence quotient, or IQ. Einstein had IQ of around 120 something. That's not 140. Yeah, you got possibly even 150, I think. But so IQ is definitely, if you're really, really slow, it's still difficult to succeed in life. No one is saying, based on today's discussion, that you can have an IQ of 30 and still be successful. It's difficult to succeed if you don't have a high IQ, right? However, most of the modern research says that IQ contributes only 20% of a person's overall success. So, and a lot of the things your kids do in school, due to tutoring, it's all working on the IQ side of things, right? So, how about this 80% of the rest of their lives? Who is going to teach them that? Most of it is your parents. So it's your responsibility to help your students beyond what they learn in class to become successful, right? And then the whole concept of neural pathways in life is that the things a kid learns between the day they are born and they are 14 is very difficult to change after that. Because think about a highway. If you keep driving on a certain route all the time, you form a really clear path. It's difficult to deviate. And kids are most impressionable when they are young, right? So if you don't train your kids well early from 0 to 14 years, you would have doomed them for life potentially, because it will be difficult for them to change on their own. So the early years of a child are by far the most important, because all those neural pathways get built, and change is not easy. I don't know if you've tried to change anything in your life. Change is very difficult, because once it's possible, but it's difficult. It's like the elephant, right? Once the elephant has become big and is going a certain way, very difficult to change. Okay? So I use this slide just to show that emotional intelligence is one thing that is not taught in school, but it's a key aspect of success in life. Okay. All right. Any questions after this? Please, this is an interactive discussion. I want us to be able to communicate. And I am from Ghana. I speak really fast, so slow me down if you have to, please. Okay. All right. So today's talk is going to focus mostly on emotional intelligence, or EQ. Some people call it EI. What is it? Once you see what we mean by emotional intelligence, you see how relevant this thing could be. So how do you help your child to motivate himself or herself, or even motivate yourself? That falls in the realm of emotional intelligence, right? It's not IQ. How do you learn how to control your impulses? If somebody offends you and you want to hit them, how do you step back? That's also emotional intelligence, right? Later on, you see an experiment that was done that deals with this thing called delaying gratification and how important that is. Delaying gratification is, instead of going out to drink with your friends, you sit down and do your math homework, because you are thinking about the future, right? Or whatever the case may be. Now, the other thing is this. if you get really emotional, it's difficult to think rationally or logically. So emotional intelligence also involves regulating your moods and not allowing your emotions to prevent you from thinking, right? And then finally, it has to do with empathy, like feeling what someone else is feeling. That's important. And the last one is really important for me personally, is hope. Okay? If you have two people, same IQ, and one of them believes in themselves and the other one does not, it turns out that the one who believes in themselves is going to go much, much further in life than the other one who does not. Okay? Now, hope can be taught at home. It depends on how your children see you behaving, how they see you acting. That can help them to become hopeful or not hopeful. Okay? So, in a nutshell, this is what we mean by emotional intelligence. The basic common sense things in life. And I bet you everybody here knows about the importance of these things. So this is more like a reminder to you and to me, because nobody ever gets an A in these things, right? Because you start to yell at your child and you realize, oh, that's not a good thing to do. But your first instinct is to yell, right? But you realize this may not be good for the child. So this is what we mean by emotional intelligence in this model. Oh, this is what I was telling you about. This is called the marshmallow test. In fact, I thought about bringing some marshmallows to this talk today, but I didn't. When I came to the States, one of the things that I found interesting was you go to a fireplace and they have these graham crackers and chocolate and marshmallows around the fireplace and they melt it. Have you tried that sandwich? It's pretty cool, right? Mm-hmm. Marshmallow sandwich. But this marshmallow test is a test that was done in Stanford in the 1960s. They took the kids of Stanford faculty and Stanford employees. They took kids around 4 years old. And then they gave them two choices. You can get the marshmallow right now, the 4-year kid, or you can wait for about 20 minutes and get two. So you get one now, or the person goes out, comes back and gives you two. So it turns out that about 70% of the students waited to get two, and 30% of the students just took the first thing that they got. So here's what happened. They checked on them again 14 years later, the same kids that they did the test on. And those who were able to wait, it's called delayed gratification, were doing better in school, right? They had more emotional stability, they had better friends, and they were more socially adjusted. So what happened to them when they were 4 years was a good example of what happened to them later in life. So here's what may be important for you. They checked their SAT scores, the group that could wait and the group that could not wait. And the difference in SAT scores was 210 more for the kids that could wait than the kids that could not wait. So something as simple as delaying getting something can say a lot as to how well someone is going to perform in life. So how do you teach things like that? Sometimes it's by observing your parents. That's what helps the student behave a certain way. So I was stunned by this test. How can something as simple as this mean so much? That it affects your SAT. This has nothing to do with IQ. Just your ability to wait to get something. That's important, right? So all of these just shows that if somebody is patient, if they're emotionally resilient, they have a bigger chance of succeeding than if somebody always wants to get things right away. This is the big one. Anxiety, right? So throughout this discussion, I want you to assume that we are talking about people maybe with the same level of IQ, for example, right? What happens to students when they are anxious? Just think about it for yourself. What happens to you when you feel anxious?
Affect your performance.
Yes, it does. And it affects your ability to think, actually. Because what happens is that a long time ago, when we were cavemen still, we used to have problems with lions and tigers. So every time that something moved in the brush or in the ground, you had to run away, right? So there was an adrenaline rush and all your blood flowed to the survival areas of your life. So we had the flight or fight response. Now we don't have any tigers in Cupertino, do we? But still, our bodies act like that. When you feel threatened by something someone says to you, your system reacts as if you've seen a tiger, even though there's really no tiger there. So your whole system gets flooded with hormones that were designed to help you run away from a tiger, but you're running away from your friend who says negative things to you. And remember, when you're running away from your tiger, your mind is not supposed to work a lot, you just want to run away. So anxiety causes you to act like someone who is being pursued by a tiger. But that's not a useful response anymore, right? So what is happening is that there are many studies right now. In fact, the biggest one that I've seen is a study of 36,000 students, and it tracked students of similar IQ backgrounds and saw that they did much worse when they were anxious than when they were not anxious, which makes sense. When you're anxious, you're not thinking straight, right? But during the test itself, if the student has many worries, it doesn't matter how smart they are, it reduces their ability to excel in the test. So you can study all you want, you can know all you want. If the student goes to take the test and the night before the parents were fighting and they're worried about that, it will impact them. It makes sense, right? So it has nothing to do with how good or bad they are. Anxiety can be a problem. However, I don't want you to see anxiety only as a problem. It can also have a benefit. I'm going to write something on the board here for a minute, if you don't mind. This is my math thing coming. This is called the inverted U. So I'm a math teacher, right? So I'm going to show how anxiety works. This is performance. I don't want you to see anxiety only as a bad thing. And this is anxiety. So obviously, this is the highest point, right? Let's call this the high point of performance. So anxiety increases this way, performance increases that way, correct? So this is what's happening here. You don't want your child to have zero anxiety either. Because if your child has zero anxiety, I mean, this thing could have started. Let's make it even more dramatic. Assuming this is true. It's a model, so it's not perfect. Somebody once said that all models are wrong, but all models are useful. So this is not a correct model, but it's useful for explanation, right? Okay, so if your child has zero anxiety, that could impact their performance as well. That means they don't really care. You've seen that before, right? The person doesn't care if they do well or not. So they don't study, they're just strolling around. That is not good. So this is the area of apathy. Like they don't care at all. They don't do well. And then there's this other area where there's too much anxiety. This is way too much stress. You don't want your child to be there either. So there has to be a good balance between anxiety to get the best performance that you can get. And as in many things in life, it's very difficult to hit that sweet spot, right? So how do you have anxiety but not too much anxiety that you are at the back? We'll see that in a minute. So we are not saying anxiety is a bad thing. We are saying too much anxiety is what? A bad thing. And remember, the anxiety was developed when we were running away from lions and tigers. So it was useful once upon a time. But right now we are saying that there's too much of it in the system. Okay?
So a question, is anxiety caused by pressure or caused by motivation?
That's a great question. So if you have a lack of motivation, it could be because you are anxious. But if you are also anxious, it could lead to a lack of motivation. It depends on which one comes first.
Also they're independent.
Yes. So it depends on what is causing what, right? Because if you are anxious and all you care, you're in the survival mode, right? So why would you want to do anything? So God forbid that this happens to you, but let's say you have cancer and you're anxious that you die in 2 weeks. Why would you want to do anything that will take 3 years to come to fruition? You see what I'm saying? So it depends on the specific case that you're dealing with. Okay. Okay. So let's look at the flip side of it. Optimism and hope, right? Maybe I should clean some, if you don't mind me cleaning this thing here. So there. Okay. So the flip side of anxiety, hope. Optimism, somebody will say positive mindset, growth mindset. There are many things that people say about that. There's a Stanford psychologist who says something that I'm going to read literally. I think it's powerful to know. He says that people's beliefs about their abilities have a profound effect on those abilities. Think about that for a minute. It doesn't matter what your ability is, but your belief in that ability has a profound effect on that ability. So there's this thing called self-efficacy. It means your ability to believe that you can make a difference, right? This is people who have a sense of self-efficacy bounce back from failures. Okay? They approach things in terms of how to handle them rather than worrying about what can go wrong. So this speaks to people who believe in themselves, people who look at life in a more positive way. Okay? So, and these are some points that are important here that typically when you're in a good mood, you are more creative. You are more flexible in your thoughts, right? You can think about more positive instances that help you get things done. This is a study by University of Kansas psychologist C.R. Snyder, who did a lot of correlation work between high hope, low hope, and SAT scores. It turns out that there's a strong correlation between high SAT scores and students with high hope. So this is not IQ stuff. So if the student has no hope in general, or they are very pessimistic, they don't tend to do well in tests. And it makes sense. Look, I would not study hard if I don't think I'll pass, right? If I believe that no matter what I do, I'm going to fail, I wouldn't even try. But if you have hope that you will do well, then you will try. That's why there's a high correlation between hope and high SAT scores. I want to stop for a second, and any question after this point? Alright, so we've looked at anxiety, we've looked at hope. But I thought at this point I'll just say I've used the word emotional intelligence a lot, but what do we mean by that? We've looked at a basic definition, but most of the good books define emotional intelligence in 4 categories, right? Self-awareness, how well do you know yourself? Okay. Then self-mastery or self-management, as well, you know yourself, you know that every time you see cheesecake, you want to eat it. But can you prevent yourself from eating it, assuming that you don't want to eat it? So that's the self-mastery part of it. And then social awareness. Some of us find it really difficult to speak in public or to do things when other people are around. And relationship management or relationship mastery, this is what is important for you as a parent. What is your relationship with your child? And how can you make it more productive, right? So we're going to do a quick look at what these things mean and how to become better at each of them, right? So what I was thinking here was, I used the word train the elephant. I'm just saying, train your emotions. That's really what I'm saying here. So self-awareness in this model, it just looks at know yourself as you really are. Okay. So sometimes, for me anyway, when I'm very upset, I try to pretend that I'm not upset. But most of the things that I've read and studied will tell you, at least acknowledge to yourself that you are upset. You don't have to do anything with the anger, but be aware that you are upset, right? So know yourself. That's really important. And then this is something that shocks people. Your feelings are neither good nor bad. So my professor at Stanford asked the question once in class, and it was really funny. He said, how would you rather be? Would you rather be the person on the beach in Malibu or someone stuck on your couch at home worrying about something? So, 2 pictures. You are lying on the beach, it's a sunny day, it's 65 degrees in Malibu, or you are at home and it's hot and you are miserable. which one is better? So you can imagine the two emotions, right? The answer is it depends. So what do I mean it depends? How can you be miserable at home and I say it depends? It depends. Because if you're in a bad mood and you're at home miserable, maybe that's exactly what you need in that moment. It can help you come up with ideas that will take you out of the situation you're in, right? And also, if you are in a place like Malibu having a good time, maybe you are thinking about something that needs creativity, and that's good. But one thing you don't want is, you don't want to be in Malibu on the beach, just chilling when you have many things that need deep, reflective thought, right? So, I say this to say that your feelings are points of information, and they're neither good nor bad. Sometimes you need to feel bad to know that something has to change. I know everybody wants to have good feelings all the time. But when you're in a very positive state of mind, what happens is that you have what they call blind spots. In fact, some of the worst things happen to people when they're very happy. You know why? They're not paying attention, right? They're not being cautious. So something can happen and then it can harm them. It happens a lot, right? So when you are upset, don't make it worse by being upset that you're upset. It's called double jeopardy, right? You're angry and you get angry because you're angry. So that's one emotion layered on top of another emotion. So let's say I'm here and I feel really nervous. So I ask myself, okay, is nervousness a good thing or bad thing? I would rather not be nervous. I'll be honest with you about that. But why am I nervous? Maybe I'm nervous because I want to do well, right? So if I acknowledge to myself why I'm feeling what I'm feeling, it can help me relax, right? So don't see your feelings as good or bad. See them as points of information asking you to act. In fact, the word emotion comes from the Greek word moteri. It means to move. So an emotion is just giving you a piece of information to move towards something or away from something. So do not be scared of emotion. Now, this one is also interesting. Let yourself feel the emotion. Like, do not run away from the emotion. So the other word is lean into your discomfort. So your emotion is trying to tell you something. Try and figure out what it is trying to tell you. Okay? That's the other thing. And then, this is common sense, really. Why do you do what you do? It's important, because you're trying to get to know about yourself. Well, I don't know if this is a good way to put it, but it says watch yourself like a hawk. It just means that at any point in time, you need to be able to tell yourself, what is your emotional portrait? Like, right now, take a second and ask yourself, how are you feeling? Are you feeling anxious because you have dinner with the in-laws this evening and you don't want to do it or not? Right? Sometimes that's what you're feeling. Are you feeling anxious because this stuff all feels so basic and you don't need to hear that? Don't feel bad about how you feel. Just know how you feel. That's it. Right? And the final one, which is really important, is how do you behave when you are stressed? That's really important. So I have a friend, he drinks a lot, but he realizes he only drinks when he's very stressed out. But at least he knows that, right? So if he doesn't want to get wasted again and he's stressed, he can do something else. He can choose to go and be with his friends who don't drink instead of go to the friends who drink. So observe yourself and recognize how do you behave when you are stressed. That's part of self-awareness, right? All right, so this is just a continuation of what we're talking about. Now that you know yourself, how do you choose to act? That is self-management or self-mastery. I'm not going to go through these steps, okay? But here's what is important. All these things here point to one thing. You need to slow yourself down when you want to act. Remember how at the beginning I said that the way our brain and emotional system develop over time, you actually get information through your emotional center before it goes to your rational center, right? How do you prevent yourself from acting on the first emotion you don't want? Slow down, right? when you slow down, you give your mind the time to catch up with the emotion. So it says breathe right. We will get to breathing in a moment. It says slow yourself down. So I want to punch you, but if I give myself 10 more seconds, maybe I wouldn't punch you anymore. Right? Oh, this is important for your kids as well. I don't know how you teach kids to do this, but self-talk is really important. How, take control of your self-talk. How do you talk to yourself? Talk. Yeah. Like, I am miserable. I am such a loser. I am such a whiner. See how that makes you feel? And then say to yourself, I am great. I can do this. I've done this before. My parents are smart, therefore I'm also smart. Now, it doesn't matter if what you're saying is true or not, but what you say affects the way you feel. So what would you rather do? You have two roads. You are the fork and it branches two ways. You can choose to talk to yourself negatively or positively, right? One of them puts you in a better mood than the other, so you have to choose which one you prefer. And then, okay, so here's the deal. Many of you parents push your kids a lot. Ask yourself, are they getting enough sleep? If your child is sleeping at 1 a.m. and they have to wake up at 6 a.m. to go play volleyball, they're not sleeping enough, right? Because one of the things that happens with memory in general is that when you learn new things, you need to have sufficient sleep for the things to be encoded in your mind. So if the kid is not sleeping well, or you're not sleeping well for that matter, your memory is going to be bad. That's one thing of lack of sleep. The second thing with lack of sleep is that you are going to be very irritable. Like anything that someone does, you're going to be upset because you didn't sleep well, right? Your attention is going to be bad. If you're driving, it's almost like you've taken some alcohol. So sleep is not talked about enough. We need to sleep better, right? Don't take coffee after 2 p.m. in the afternoon because coffee stays in your system for about 12 hours. So if you want to sleep at 2 a.m. the next day, you can take coffee after 2 p.m., right? You need to know how these things work. And the last one, people don't talk about it enough, gratitude, right? If you are grateful for what you have, okay? It doesn't matter. Yes, your friends drive a Lamborghini, so what? You drive a Nissan, doesn't matter. As long as you are grateful for what you have, your life is going to be so much more under control. They don't talk about that enough, but that's important. Don't look at what you don't have, look at what you have. And it's important to let the kids know that. Because sometimes the kids are looking at what their friends are doing, that they went to vacation in Costa Rica, and all you guys are doing is going to vacation in Florida, right? But have you thought about the kid in Africa or Cambodia who doesn't even go on vacation, right? So gratitude is really important.
Could you please go back to the previous slide?
Okay.
That the old one.
The one before this?
The one before this. Thank you.
So, all right, so social awareness, I'm not going to spend much time on this, but this is something that I want you to find. The last one in particular. The more different groups you get your kids in, the better. As long as you're not overstretching them. So don't let your kids be in 5 groups and one of them is robotics. The other one is like everything science. No, there has to be diversity. And they have to be able to get involved with different groups. That way they can learn how to act when they go to college. Like, I came from Africa, right? And I went to Georgia Tech and I was like, oh my God, there are no black people here. So, I mean, I'm so used to, all I've seen in my life is black people, and I go to college and there are no black people. So what am I going to do, right? So the more diversity you have in your life, the better, right? Then, my first day at Columbia, I go in and my entire class, there's no black person either. Like, what is wrong with me that everywhere that I go, there are no black people? It's just crazy, right? So what I'm saying is, it's much easier to be socially competent when you have diversity in your life.
Now you're in the room of agents.
I got used to that. Okay, so we are almost getting to the end, but here's something that I think works for parents with their kids. How do you manage your relationship with your child? It's very important. So African parents are very, very strict. Like, they tell you your mom is not your friend, your dad is not your friend, right? So I remember when I was growing up, I would look at my mom in the face and she'd smack me and say, why are you looking at me like that? Because in Africa, looking at somebody in the eye who's older than you is considered disrespect, right? but in the US, if your parents are talking to you, you don't look at them, you're like, why are you not looking at me, right? So, I mean, but it's important, I would say, to get to know your child. Like, be curious about your child. What do they like? What don't they like? How are they when they are stressed, right? Because if you don't know your child, you can't help them. And children have different personalities, so it's really important that you get to know them. They know you are their mom or dad, so you don't have to keep reminding them that I'm your mom, I'm your dad. They know that already, right? So treat them like adults. That's one of the points that I have. Treat your child like an adult. If you decide to ground them and take the iPad from them, explain to them why you're taking the iPad from them. Don't just say, because I'm your mom or your dad, I'm taking the iPad from you. Because if you treat your child like an adult, they will start acting like an adult. It's important, right? I know all of you care, but show you care. One thing I notice about African parents, and I know a lot about African parents, is that they love their kids, but they never tell them they love them. It's like a parent has to have a distance with the kid. So the kid doesn't know that you love them unless you show them you love them. Because the kid who grows up feeling loved is a much better kid than the kid who grows up being scared of the parents. So I used to think that, oh yeah, when my dad is coming to the house, everybody has to start behaving. Like, I go to my room and make sure that everything is in order. I go and make sure that my place is clean. But when he's not there, what am I doing, right? So it's important, just in summary, to be able to tell your kid you love them, right? And also, there's something called the criticism sandwich. If you have to say a bad thing or a strong thing to your kid, it's important to make a sandwich out of it. So you start with something good, then you put inside what you really want to say, and you end with something bad. That's a constructive criticism sandwich. That way the kid doesn't feel judged. I don't know if you've noticed this, but there are a lot of studies that show that even if I'm wrong, and you tell me I'm wrong, but you upset me before you tell me I'm wrong, I won't listen to what you just told me. Right? Because people are very, very weird. They know they're wrong, but just because you upset them, they won't change. And it happens to many kids as well. So it's important that you just say, you know what, John, 95% of the time you're a great kid. But this morning when you woke up, you didn't make your bed. However, I'm very positive that tomorrow you will. Right? So that's a criticism sandwich. You've given the kid a positive view of what they could do and do differently, and they respond that way. Right? Alright, so this is the part of the talk that I want us to do some practical demonstrations of stuff. So I didn't just want us to talk, and do nothing, right? So there are two key techniques that I want us to practice here that you can do with your kids at home. These are both techniques for anxiety management. Why am I talking about anxiety management? That is the thing that causes the kids to do poorly in school. Anxiety. So let's talk about it for a minute. I mean, we all know the 5 senses, right? Sense of sight, sense of feeling, of sound, of taste, of smell, right? Okay, so if you are anxious and you wanted to get yourself out of that anxiety, there are many things you could do. I mean, this is not the only thing you could do. There are at least 15 workable techniques of anxiety management. I like this one because it's not very difficult to do. Okay? So this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique, it works on 3 premises, and I'm not going to talk about those premises. One of them is, it helps to distract yourself when you are anxious. I'm not going to explain what that means, but the other one is, being present or mindful of your physical state helps you to overcome anxiety. The third one is, being immersed in something. It's called self-hypnosis. Also helps you to overcome anxiety. So this so-called 5, 3, 2, 1 technique, what it does is, it helps you to get immersed in something else different from what is worrying you, so that the anxiety will pass. Here's how it works. And I want you to actually do it now. Just pick any 3 senses, seeing or feeling or sound or taste or smell. Preferably something around you, like, let me give you an example. Think about 5 things that you see right now. Just any 5 things, or look at the 5 things you can see, the 5 different things, right? Just look at that. And then hear 5 different sounds. What can you hear right now? I can hear some humming sound. What else? People's papers rustling. What else can you hear? The air conditioner. Okay. What else? Okay. So the idea is that you're engaging at least 3 out of your 5 senses. When you are very advanced, you can engage all 5. But start with 3, right? 3 things that you can see. Well, 5 things you can see, but 3 different things. And then 5 things you can hear. So you need to pay attention to your environment to hear 5 different things. It's not easy, right? And then if you're somebody who is good at feeling, 5 things you can feel. You can feel your phone in front of you, you can feel your bag, you can feel the ground, right? If you're wearing tight clothes like mine, you can feel that the clothes are rubbing on you, and maybe next time you should wear something with more air in it. Whatever it might be. 5 things, 3 different senses. So do you know what this is doing for you? If you are focused really on those things, you're not going to have enough time to be thinking about the in-laws you're going to meet later tonight that you don't want to meet, or something that happened in the morning that you were not happy about, right? So it is basically helping you to redirect your energy towards something else. So it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 because you think about those 5 things, feel it, hear it, see it. If you're very good at smelling, smell different things in the room, right? This could take you maybe 3 minutes to do, 2 minutes depending on who you are. Once you finish that, you go down. Think about 4 other things. It could be the same 4 out of 5. But so this is a cycle. Then you go through the same process again. Then you think about 3 things and 2 things. So that's why it's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. Usually, when you get advanced at this technique, by the time you get to step 3, you will forget about what is worrying you. It hasn't gone away. But remember how I said your emotions act before your logic acts? You're giving yourself time to be able to process stuff. Okay? So, and if you are spiritual, there are many spiritual practices that people use, but none of these things are spiritual that I'm showing you today. Right? So, see, feel, smell, hear, and go down the checklist. That's one way that before you take an exam, so let's say you're going to take an exam and your anxiety level is too high, you can practice that. That would help you get grounded, and then you can take the exam. So that's a technique that you can apply for or you are at an airport, right? And the flight is delayed for 1 hour and you have to get to where you're going to. You can use that in an airport as well. So then somebody asks the question, what if you can't see 5 things? And what if you can't hear 5 sounds? And what if you can't smell 5 things? So then the answer is this. Have you seen 5 things in your life before? I'm sure you have. So you can bring them. So you can imagine those things as well. You can imagine a smell, you can imagine a sound. But did you know this? Our minds are amazing. If you imagine yourself in Machu Picchu, say Peru, really nice, pristine area, and you actually go there, there have been studies using MRI that shows that the parts of your mind that are activated when you imagine something very clearly are exactly the same parts when you actually go and do it. So visualizing is really powerful. You don't always have to go somewhere to have the impact of that thing. So when you go on vacation, instead of spending all the time taking pictures, maybe you can just take it in, right? And feel it, so that you can recollect those things later. So that's one technique. And then the other way, and many of you may know this, especially from Asian cultures, breathing techniques, right? That's when meditation comes in. But this is not a meditation technique. This thing that I'm talking about, it's not a meditation technique, but it works like meditation techniques. So here's how it works. When you're very anxious, you breathe just from your chest. We call them shallow breaths, right? So usually when somebody's in a survival mode, they're just breathing from their chest. They're not getting enough oxygen into their system. Have you seen someone going through a panic attack before? They're not breathing deep. I can tell you, they're just breathing out there like that.
That's
right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the survival mode. How do you counteract that? When you are anxious, you breathe very shallow. In fact, last week I was at my doctor's and my doctor said, after doing some lab tests, that I have quite a bit of carbon dioxide in my system, meaning that I've been going through a stressful time or I'm not breathing right? So that is the survival mode. But there's a system in our body called the parasympathetic system, right? That one works best if you actually breathe in deeply, okay? So as compared to breathing it from your chest, you breathe from your diaphragm, which is the part just above your lower ribs and your upper ribs. Those are very deep breaths. First of all, think about this. 20% of the oxygen in your body is used by your brain, and the rest of it by the rest of your system. So the more oxygen you have in your system, the better you function, right? So this breathing technique is called the 4-square technique of breathing. This is not the only way, there are many ways of breathing, right? This is how it works, and you can try this. So count slowly to 4 as you breathe in. You can say 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. Hold it for 4 counts. And then breathe out slowly, same thing, for 4 counts, right? So after you've held your breath, count whilst you're breathing out. After you finish breathing out, hold it for another 4 counts, and then start the process again. So this is a deep breath that helps you to counter-program against the shallow breathing that you have. So if you're anxious, you're literally breathing too fast, then it's too shallow. So you counter-program by going through a technique like this. This is not the only one, but this is something that many people can do. Okay? Any question on this one? And if you're very good at meditation, you probably know this already anyway. Then one more advanced technique. This is advanced, so I wouldn't recommend it if you haven't been breathing this way for a long time. You've seen the 7-Eleven shops, right? This is called the 7-Eleven breathing technique. This is what many famous singers and actors use. It helps them to deepen their breath, and it helps them to be able to perform in front of a crowd. It's a bit hard. It needs practice to get it. So basically, this is what you're doing. You are breathing in on a count of 7, really slowly. It's not easy to do, trust me, right? And then you're breathing out on a count of 11. So you count all the way to 11 to breathe out. And then you cycle that, and you cycle that for a few times. And then you can put yourself in a relaxation response. So your kid can do that before an interview. You can do that yourself. You can do that before an exam. You can do that when you're going to go meet your in-laws. You can do that when you're going to go talk to somebody about something that's really difficult to talk about, right? So breathing, in summary, is one of the ways to overcome anxiety. But it's also really healthy because it helps you to get more oxygen into your system and helps you to relax. So these are, I guess, 2 of many, many different techniques of relaxation. There are many ways. There are other things you can tense your whole system, hold it, and let yourself go. So muscle relaxation is another way to overcome anxiety, right? You can actually combine breathing techniques with muscle relaxation to be able to help you relax. If you're very good at visualizing, you can think about the last place that you went that you really liked and bring back all the pictures of the good things, right? Think about how it smelled to be in that place, how the birds were chirping, what you could hear, right? What was the water like? Pure green azure, whatever it might be. If you're able to do that, that can also bring you into a relaxation response. So anyway, in a nutshell, I want to say that you guys already do a lot for your kids, and you know more things than what I've talked about. I'm just saying that your kids need more than just tutoring and schoolwork. They need to learn other skills that will help them be resilient, that will help them be better people for society. That's the end of my talk.
All right.
Any questions? Well, yeah, thank you very much. I'm around for a few more minutes if there's anything that you want to talk about. Yeah. So I think what I've seen other parents do, get to know your friends' friends, like invite them to come. Right? Don't try to stop them from making their friends. Get to know them. If you get to know your friends, your child's friends, it will prevent them from making bad friends because they will not want to bring friends to you that are not the right things. Number one. And number two, that I would recommend is have activities where you do it. Because if they come home and all they do is watch TV, they don't have any program for them, they rather go and be with their friends. Right? And African parents are more strict, so sometimes they will say, look, this friend of yours that you have, I don't want to see him again. Sometimes that's what you do. But I would say it's good to know who their friends are. Yes.
I have a question, sir.
Yes.
I noticed from you specifically point out anxiety. You must have a reason.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So what have you observed? What have you seen? Yeah.
So for myself, I would sometimes study hard and not do well in the test, and I figured out that's what was affecting my performance. Right? But many of the scientific studies I've looked at, the ones that affect the students' exam performance, anxiety, that's the number one impact. And I was focused on how to get students to do well in school.
Okay.
That's why I focus on anxiety.
I see. So you're saying that as long as we can effectively help our kids manage the level of anxiety, actually can help them more perform effectively
In school.
In school.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's
All
very
right,
good.
got it.
That's why I focus.
Okay, I see. Cool. Yeah, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Does making you like anxiety to help using your
Yes. So doing these exercises will help you relax before any stressful situation. Maybe you are presenting something in a robotics challenge. Before you go up, 5 minutes before, you can just do deep breathing exercises before you go in. Right? So to help you even before you study, right? Before an exam. But you have to do it regularly.
What else can you do to reach?
You need to know what you're good at as well. That's a different thing altogether. Kids need to know what are they good at. So there's a book called Strengths Finder that you go through a test and then it will let you know where you are good at. So I think it's important to be able to do strengths.
What is the name?
It's called Strengths Finder. That is a good
Strengths.
where is this? Yeah, so strengths, it's a book, but so you can do it online without the book. So this is strengths finder. Actually, I don't have it here with me today, but I have that book. I have the picture of it. Yeah. So this is a good book that will help the kid know what they are good at. Because if you don't know what you're good at, it's very difficult to become great. So, you're welcome. Yeah, I'm just, my phone was off. Yeah.
I missed the first few minutes.
Oh, okay. My name is Muhammad. Yes.
Okay.
Like M-A-H-A-M-A.
And you're like a psychologist?
I'm certified in NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. It has to do with the mind and how to become more efficient. But my background is chemical.
Very different.
Yeah. This is something that I learned on the side.
Okay.
So I'm interested in that.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes.
他们都不知道我是，你是说都在，你说在 Springlight office，
Let's see.
你说 Springlight office， 我马上就知道了。都能的。没有，就是我email给你的。然后你用手机看也行，你用电脑看也行，都可以。但是你要告诉我你要听哪一个人。因为我一个人是一个讲座30块，那我不知道当时。
So to do the two fingers?
3号的请MIT 的。
Yeah.
我家儿子讲的是请芝加哥的。
我们不是去 MIT， 但是我们对 MIT 的人讲的感兴趣。
对，可以啊，那就是各个人的教育更好。
So this is up. Yeah. So you want to go down?
Yeah.
Actually, it's pretty. Yeah. Two at the same time. It's weird, right?
我小孩大的小孩。
Do you have the slides? Do you have slides so I can click the slides?
This is Google Slides. So.
Oh, okay.
所以我就对那个没竞赛也没。
But see, that's perfectly at the same time. That's at the same time, the movement and the.
这两个都女生哈。
哦，我们是
都没有竞赛。我家儿子也是男孩，他也没有竞赛。
L stands for
Neuro-linguistic.
neuro-linguistic.
This is neuro-linguistic program.
NLP. I never heard of it.
Yeah. NLP. It uses a lot of psychological principles around how the mind works and how to optimize it. So this is the strengths for
但是他很大的优点，他那个能力一经验很好，这样子他对其他家大概蛮有好处的。可是芝加哥我应该说之前蛮辛苦的。
Thank you.
他要很高的话，其实大概。
That's good to know.
Yes, it's actually very cheap.
领导是。
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Nice to meet you.
我那个大的是竞赛一大堆，我带的剧本。
我跟你说，我们也没很好，我们也没竞赛，我们的课都是
哦，你那么小就来听啊？
那么对吗？
因为我今年我大的今年毕业，我大的今年就还小的，
我还以为是另外一个讲座，
是英语娃吧？我儿子是
是英语娃吧？
长得像吗？还是到最后的放在身边最好。他有儿子长得太远的，长得太可爱了。哦，他去芝加哥，哦，现在没定。
你芝加哥先到嘛，先付了deposit，现在 Conner Witness 又来了。
芝加哥business 你知道吗？
没有，芝加哥的是 economics。
哦，对，就 business economics 这方面，他学
芝加哥那是不是那个大厅啊？
有一个大城市，一个偏僻，就是
因为我在美国有待过一段时间，我在那边回了。可以说哦，康奈尔大学有个就是说，我还没回家，我都还从 Syracuse 从早到要
I see.
kept losing weight。我觉得那种不断是考验，但每次一做，所以你看品牌还走才2、3个 blog， 在网上这只要去那个要去
She's not. So something like that, I think it has to do with.
There's always some people better than you, so
Yes.
I don't know how to win.
So maybe what you do is you also direct her to things that she is better at than other people. There's some things that she is better than other people. And then you say that life is fair. Right? If you're better than other people in some things, other people will also be better than you. So you accept that you cannot be better than everybody, everything.
恭喜耶，2个
Just
好
a few
难选
things.
哎。
Right?
OK。
And you let her redefine this. Success is not in winning. And success is in doing her best. So, like when she comes to the mirror every morning, can she say, "I did my best"? If she can say she did her best, that's it. Because you cannot control something out the outcome. So one of the things that kids need to learn in general is let go of everything else. Do your best, right? Because sometimes you do your best and you fail.
Yes.
So what can you do? So whether you worry or you don't worry, it will happen anyway, right?
Yes, yes.
But you give yourself a better chance if you don't worry. You're welcome.
So the conclusion is life is fair or life is not.
The conclusion is